My name is Chelsea Garrett. Thank you for being here tonight. The state of the town, aka state of the union. We have a great agenda. It's a tight agenda, and I'm going to put that up for you now. But this has been long overdue. We've actually scheduled and I think canceled and rescheduled this event probably 4 times. It was going to be live and virtual, and so glad to have you all here live. We are recording this for those who may be interested to watch after. Is this live as well? Okay, so it's something that can be watched afterwards. Tonight, the speakers, as you can see, Charles Harden from our Blowing Rock Chamber, our town update from Mayor Charlie Sellers, and my understanding is that he has our representative, Ray Pickett. He is graciously, I think, giving some of his time to Mr. Pickett for an update potentially on state matters. So thank you, Mayor. Our Tourism and Development Authority Director, Tracy Brown, who's also manning the camera. Very multi-skilled, Tracy. And then we have our Appalachian Regional Healthcare CEO, Chuck Mantooth, here. So thank you so much for being here. And then I will be back up to take questions. So take notes, and just thank you all for being here. I did just, out of interest for history, look up that our first state of the town was in 1790, and in January, and then during Reagan's term, he started having them during the month of February to try to drum up support for the agenda of the then current president. And the first state of the union was in New York City. So the states and local municipalities have adopted the same tradition as a great way to give an update to the citizens of what's going on, what's coming up, the accomplishments, and really just to rally. And I think there's nothing better than having the community here like there is tonight, because this is the way we get things done. Find out what needs to happen, how we are raising money for it, and moving forward together. So appreciate your involvement and your effort to be here. And without further ado, I'd like to call up Charles Harden.
So I want to thank our partners tonight in this event, the Blowing Rock Tourism Development Authority, of course the Chamber, the Village Foundation, Appalachian Regional Healthcare, and the town of Blowing Rock. The first thing I want to tell you is that, like Chelsea said, this is the 4th time we've rescheduled this since August. So our presentation was originally written for what we did in 2020, but since most of 2021 is already gone now, we have updated this to include a lot of what's been going on since in this current year. But in 2020, the year of the pandemic, the Chamber was elected or selected as the Chamber of the Year for our 2-state association, North and South Carolina. So I wanted to mention that. That was our big accomplishment in 2020. And there we are receiving the award from Lindsay Kiesler, who's president of Catawba Chamber of Commerce in Hickory. And that was right during the COVID right after the shutdown. So this is our mission statement on the right, and our 2 brands. We have our logo, of course, the Chamber logo, but the other one is our Love Blowing Rock logo, which is often referred to as our Shop Local logo, which we use to try to get people to buy and purchase goods here locally, do services locally in our town and in our county. Our mission at the Chamber is to promote, protect, and improve business through the cultural, social, and economic development, growth, and sustainability of Blowing Rock while preserving the charm and character of the village. So a lot of chambers, as you know, across the country probably don't have that last piece in their mission statement, but that is very important in this town. Our membership in 2020, this kind of shows you a pie chart of how our membership is segmented by business sector. So it's pretty balanced. We have a lot of folks in hospitality, of course, but we also have a lot of service members, service business members. We have 528 members, and we had 35 new ones in 2020. In 2021, this is the year that the Chamber has spent a lot of time rebuilding after the pandemic. We had to reduce our staff. We had to certainly cancel a lot of our events, which we had been doing over the years. We had to go, as everybody did, virtually for most of our meetings and where we could. We did events virtually. That's pretty hard to do. But this year, we've been rebuilding the staff. We have a new team, which I think I'll mention right now since some of them are here. Kathy Drury, she's our new Membership Engagement Director. She just started back in April. And of course, Susie Barker in the back, our events director. This year, we have onboarded, as of today, we had one join today, so it's actually 52 new members this year, as of today. We have hosted and promoted 17 ribbon cuttings and grand openings, so we've got a lot of new businesses in town. A lot of you have attended those events, and we have held 8 business after hours. Most of these were very COVID restricted in terms of attendance and so forth. We had one business before hours. Most of them were outdoors as well. And we held our annual awards presentation back in February. We did that virtually. So the Chamber's broken down into these major committees. We have our EDC, Economic Development Council, which is comprised of 3 committees: Tourism and Event Strategy, Community Development, and Business and Entrepreneurial Development. Then we have our Community Government and Education Committee, of which Chelsea is the chair, and our Membership Committee. So this is kind of the breakdown of the Chamber organization. It's been hard to have committee meetings this year. Chelsea and I were just talking about this. We have had them. We actually have had some out in the yard. We put a circle of chairs out in the yard and had a meeting. That works, but as everybody knows, we've all had to adapt. So tourism development is about the events and event strategies. We had planned to try to reintroduce our Savor event in 2022. That's not going to happen, even though I promised it last year. We are not going to do that event for the foreseeable future, but at some point it may come back. Art in the Park is a major event. We were able to have this during 2021 and also a few shows in 2020. This year's shows, we kind of averaged about 75% by the end of the season. We started out at a 50% show, and we gradually went up. By the October show, we were about 75% of the 91 booths that we normally have. A lot of our artists have retired, and that's the case with our workforce. And so we have lost a lot of artists. And so our major focus for 2022 is to recruit some new talent. And I'm sure that there are new artists out there. We're traveling to different shows all over the state to try to find art talent to be part of the Art in the Park show. We did hold our Symphony by the Lake event on July 23rd this past year. We limited that to 50% of the general admission tickets to allow for social distancing. That worked because we sold out. We normally have 4,000 people at the event. This year we had under 3, about 2,500 total. So folks did come out for that. We will continue that smaller format going forward. We had a lot of positive comments about it this past year. People liked not having people piled on top of them. And I get it. So we have figured out a formula. I believe that we can make that work going forward to have fewer people at that event. Winterfest in 2021 was a very limited event. But we did have something, because basically what we understand is that if you drop an event entirely off the calendar for 2 years, you might as well forget about it. And so we wanted to keep a presence, at least on the calendar, so that we didn't have to forget about some of these events. In 2022, we will be back a little closer to normal, but still not full Winterfest. We're going to get rid of most of the indoor events. That's where the issues are. A lot of our events at Winterfest are indoors. So we'll be focusing on what we can do outside. A lot of people don't like to be outside in January, so we'll see how that goes. These are our event brands, the 3 major brands that we have for our events. The next committee I'll talk about briefly is our Community Development Committee. This is chaired by Jim Pitts. They had one goal this year from our retreat last year, which was to develop a Living the Dream video, which would be used to recruit folks that are thinking of possibly moving here. We know that a lot of folks did move here back in 2020. Our school, I think, has 50 or 60 new children in the school this year, so obviously a lot of families have moved here. This has been put on hold. We probably won't release it until next summer, but it's for the audience of folks that are out there that want to work remotely or want to entrepreneurially bring a small business here perhaps, or relocate to the area. Problem is we don't have any place for them to live now. We sold all those, so this may or may not work out. But anyhow, we've already done all the work on this, so we will have a product by next summer. One thing that started back in 2019 was our Leadership Challenge class of 2019 decided to take this project on to build a restroom at the new Blowing Rock School playground, because the children, especially during COVID, the school children go outside and then trying to get back in the building if they need to go to the bathroom. Didn't work. So we found out the need for it during COVID, but before that even, there was no restroom for the children out there. So they raised $85,000 for this project, the class of 2019, those folks right there. They went through all the permitting through Department of Public Instruction in Raleigh. They designed and built this restroom for the playground. It's used for the children at Blowing Rock School during the school year and during the school week, on weekends, and in the summertime it's used by visitors. And also our Parks and Rec also uses this for their events that they hold down at school on the athletic fields. They negotiated a memorandum of understanding between the town and the Watauga County school system about who would take care of this, because the big thing we said was, if we build this thing, we don't want to go down there in a year from now and it never having been cleaned, and it would be nasty. So we don't want that situation. So who's going to clean it? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to keep the roof on it? Who's going to keep it painted? So they worked all that out. And it was opened on September 20th of this year. If you haven't seen it, go down there and check it out. It's really nice. The Business and Entrepreneurial Development Committee is chaired by Ben Powell. The big project that we have done this year or are working on is restarting our Blowing Rock Young Professionals group. It kind of went away during COVID, but it was kind of going away before COVID. So we're trying to resurrect that group, because we need to get these young folks engaged that are living and moving to our community. And this is the best way that I know that we can do that. We have also worked with partners to get high-speed internet for downtown. We had a ribbon cutting during the shutdown, actually, with Skyline Skybest, who put high-speed fiber downtown on Main Street. And so that project was done, and Skyline is going to expand that service into the neighborhoods as we go along. We have also been working on electric vehicle charging stations. We have gotten some commitments from several companies that are going to put some over at Tanger. These really supercharger stations that you can charge an electric vehicle in 20 minutes. So those are coming over to Tanger. And we're also working with the town about putting some downtown, some more of the, not the superchargers, because we don't want them to charge and leave in 20 minutes. We want them to park in a parking space and go shopping for 2 or 3 hours and then leave if they need to. This is a Community and Government and Education Committee. This is Chelsea's committee. This is an Advocacy Committee. So one of the things this group does is plan this event. So we have done this now. It's in its 13th year here in Blowing Rock. And we also this group also coordinated the Candidates Forum, which was held back on October 4th, which I'm sure a lot of you attended. Another thing that we did this year, as we have for probably 5 years now, is providing scholarships for our science, our STEM students down at Blowing Rock School to go to the North Carolina School of Science and Math for a summer accelerator program. So we had 7 scholarships awarded this year. 1 was virtual and 6 were in person, where the children actually went to the school down in Raleigh. This year it was in Raleigh. We do that in partnership with the Community Foundation and other donors in the town, private donors. Leadership Challenge, we had to cancel that in 2021 because of COVID, but we are taking applications for 2022, which will begin on March 4th. So if you know somebody that's new in the community who would like to participate in this program, we would love to have you send them our way to look into this. The big thing that we have been working on lately is this Underground Utilities Task Force. So we established that through this committee, and the whole idea of this task force is to get some real numbers on what it would take to put these utilities underground. Number one. Number two, to work with those utilities to get them to come to the table to do this work. And number three is to send a plan over to the town council to look at, along with some funding ideas, to get this done. We have a window of opportunity in 2023 when the town is, and Shane will talk about this in a minute, but the town is going to dig up the entirety of Main Street to put in a new water and sewer line. This is your one window in 50 years to actually do this underground the utilities. It's so much less expensive doing it that way. Plus, it's inconvenient when you go rip up the street. So this is our one chance. If we don't exercise this chance in 2023, I guarantee you it'll be 50 more years before they'll have that option again. And I don't know about all of you, but I won't be here in 50 years, so we won't get to enjoy it. These are some of the community events the Chamber does. Of course, the Farmers Market. This year we introduced the High Country Food Hub satellite pickup location at the Food Hub. We also do the Concerts in the Park series and the Shred Day, which I think many of you participate in. Here are big problems for 2022. We have not had our retreat yet, but we do know that these issues are on the horizon. Workforce shortages, everybody knows that's a problem, and we've got to find some solutions for that. Affordable workforce housing is another one that kind of ties in with that one. So we got to work on that too. We will continue to be providing guidance to our business members about COVID because it's still with us. And as of last night, we had a communication about COVID. Things change. It's constantly evolving. And even though it changed last night somewhat for the good in a lot of people's opinion, it could also change back. We know that the numbers could go back up and things could get worse. So at any rate, we will continue to energize our YP and recruiting remote workers to our community. And our Underground Utilities Task Force. And also we'll be working with TDA in the town on the parking solutions, which are going to come from the Roger Brooks thing that Tracy will talk about. Real quickly, the Village Foundation, I want to, as I'm a board member on the Village Foundation, I'm just quickly reporting here. Most of you know this was established in 2012. They got a new logo this year, so that's new. The foundation has funded 55 grants totaling $786,000 for community projects in town of Blowing Rock. This year, they collected $287,000 to be granted or for the South Gateway Greenway project, which was land that was given over to the town to be kept in a conservancy status down on the South Gateway behind the sign, the Welcome to Blowing Rock sign down there. They also stepped up this year to do a match grant with the TDA to help us get to $85,000 for that bathroom. I didn't tell that story. I don't have time to tell that story, but we raised $65,000. It wasn't enough. So we had to come back with building costs going up. We had to come back and get some more money. So there's where we got some of it. Also working with the Historical Society to construct the History Walk, which more will come on that soon, that from Mayview Plaza along Laurel Lane will eventually probably go over into Mayview Park. The first 10 stations have been approved along Laurel Lane. There's a public-private partnership for constructing those. The money has been raised for 18 of the 20 stations, so all that has already been raised. So very good job there for the Village Foundation. And that's all I have. Thank you for attending the event. I went over. This time I would like to introduce our Honorable Mayor, Mr. Charlie Sellers.
That photo from after I won the first time. Thank goodness for dermatologists, you know. All right. Hey, thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. You know, first and foremost, COVID has really shed a different light on society. And our little town was very blessed. And I want to thank all of our citizens, full-time, part-time, our town employees, for all the hard work and efforts they made to keep our town where we are now. You know, I also want to thank Virginia Powell, Sue Sweeting, Jim Steele, Doug Matheson, Albert Yant, and David Harwood. I've had the pleasure of serving with all of them. And, you know, it's a real challenge, as we all know. You know, during the last few years, since we didn't have this event essentially last year in this manner, we saw the completion of 321, planted new trees in Memorial Park. We moved forward with upgrading of Sunset Drive. We've now completed 90% of our paving in town and a lot of the infrastructure. We brought back police service to our police station in town, 7 days a week, which the citizens really wanted, and the council approved that. We have a police resource officer at our elementary school, which we, the town, are paying for. And the council was gracious enough to approve that as well. We have a part-time ambulance service. We've campaigned for crosswalks on Sunset and Main and 221 in Main. That's happening, and Shane will go over those details. I'm just highlighting these things because I do not want to steal Shane Fox's thunder, because he makes things happen in this town. Sidewalk to Bass Lake, it's almost done. I thought I was going to get to visit, taking a ride over from Foley Center. Renovations at the pollution control facility and our water treatment plant are completed and ongoing. We approved the long-awaited pay structure for our town employees. Our turnover rate is very, very low, which is excellent. We persevered through COVID. Now, moving forward, this coming year, we need to protect the uniqueness of our town and the charm and uniqueness of our town. We must unify all of our citizens, communities, civic organizations, and all work together. One common goal, one blowing rock. Plan for additional parking in town. We need to work on that. We're going to work on the 24/7 transport in Blowing Rock. The ongoing issues of speeding on 321. Unfortunately, that's everywhere. But that is going to be something that is a prime focus in 2022. Memorial Park. David Harwood and a few others are spearheading a committee to continue enhancement of Memorial Park and take it to the next level. And of course, looking at the feasibility and cost for the water, power lines, utility lines on Main Street, and that's something the Chamber's spearheading. So I would once again like to thank all the citizens and the town employees. Now, Ray Pickett. We have Ray Pickett here with us this evening. He's our representative with the state of North Carolina. He has some good news for us, which surprised many of us. So, Mr. Ray Pickett, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Charlie. We have a signed budget. Thank goodness. It's been a very long session, but we finally got it signed. Governor signed it this afternoon. It's got a lot of good things in it. One in particular is for town of Blowing Rock. As you just heard in Charles's presentation, they are going to be digging up Main Street, putting in new water and sewer. Well, in this year's budget, I have $4.8 million to go to that project to help take care of it. And that was something that, when this budget process came around, I talked to everyone in my district, and that was, from the town, that was the top priority, to get that done. And it's a priority across the state. Water and sewer has been a big push this year because we have, it's not just Blowing Rock. It's towns across the state have issues with their water and sewer, their treatment plants, their lines. I'm sure many of you have heard about the forever chemicals, lead that's in people's water. It's a lot of it's because our infrastructure is getting old and it needs help. This is going to go a long ways in helping Blowing Rock's infrastructure. And while I'm standing here, there's a few other things on this list for this area, but I think the biggest one on here that everybody in Blowing Rock knows a lot about, there was also $500,000 for the Middle Fork Greenway. It's going to be in there to help them complete that. And I have a brief update, some 30-some pages of the budget, and if anyone wants to look at this, I'll be glad to let Shane have some copies of it at Town Hall if anybody wants to read through this. Or if you just want to read the budget, it's online. It's about 1,400 pages. So if you want some afternoon reading. All right, Shane, it's all up to you.
Yeah, Ray, I went to look earlier today before the budget was passed to try to find our allocation just to make sure one more time for about the 50th time that it was still in there. And I think the allocation piece had been narrowed down to 690 pages. Is that right? I think just for the allocation piece within that? Yeah, so it's a lot of reading to try to find one little line that has our name in there and an amount with it.
And then read the policy part.
Yeah, didn't do that. Didn't read the policy part. Got enough of that on my own here in the town. So, yeah, unbelievable, news today from Ray when he texted. He did text me before he texted Melissa. We were side by side in the meeting, so that was a little awkward for a moment that I got a text from him first about the budget being passed, and then a few minutes later, I think she got one. So, sorry for that, Ray. But thank you for your time. I've got about 200 slides here to go through. Not really. 30 slides, give or take. quick outline of my state of the town, kind of what I'm looking at tonight, and we'll talk about election and COVID. Obviously, we briefly went over a few moments ago. Thank you to elected officials. I'll go into a little more detail there. And then COVID and how much of an impact COVID has had negatively and positively on the town of Blowing Rock. I call Blowing Rock by the numbers an update of our revenues the last year and our expenses, and then how that kind of plays into what you get for your money, so to speak, within our different departments. Since we last met, these are our completed projects. We've done quite a bit in the last 12 months. So chance for me to go over a few of those things. Have some pictures here to share. On deck, upcoming projects. Water line on Main Street and sewer line on Main Street is one of those projects. We have some other things within the works. And I put here Collaboration 101. I was told during the interview process that this was a tight-knit community, had a lot of players involved, a lot of different entities that were there and had been there for a number of years to really try to impress me, I think, in the collaboration. I didn't give a lot of thought to it until I was here. And the first year or so, that I was here before COVID, it was unbelievable, from, every other citizen to the groups that I've listed up here. Just a tremendous amount of collaboration that goes on in this town. And during COVID, it's only brought the groups together even more so. And so as I go through the projects, as I go through the updates and show what's on tap, you'll start hearing a lot about that collaboration. You'll start hearing about these entities, the TDA and the ABC board. You'll start hearing about private citizens that have come out and helped through this process. I think we're in such a unique location that we all obviously want to be here for the beauty and the love and the understanding that we all have for such a beautiful place to be here. But from my perspective and the job that I do, we couldn't do these projects without the collaboration that's up there. So didn't want to end on that before I got started on the slide, but it is a huge deal and a huge ability gives us a huge ability to do what we do at the town. Election, congratulations to Mayor Sellers, re-elected for his third term, Doug Matheson for his fourth term. Pete Gerini and Melissa Pickett will be starting their first terms on December 14th. And then thank you to Sue Sweeting, who decided not to run this year after finishing her second term. COVID started on, that's right. COVID officially started for the town on March the 14th. It was a Saturday. I remember it like it was yesterday. Mayor Sellers came over to Town Hall and we signed the first state of emergency. And I don't know how many we've signed since then. We just ended one last night, and I don't remember what number that even was, but there's been quite a few in the last 18, 19 months. We started with 100% uncertainty. When we look at the town and we went into the first budget season, that 2020 budget, even into the 2021 budget, there was so much uncertainty from a town's perspective of revenue sources, expenditures. COVID was putting a huge damper, obviously, in the early months when no one was here. We had lockdowns in place. Visitors weren't essentially allowed to be here without quarantining for 2 weeks. The result of what has happened is an unbelievable 16-month span, and I'll talk about that in just a few moments. It would be a complete lie for me to sit here, or any of us to sit here and say that we had any idea of what was going to happen from just an overwhelming standpoint. The number of visitors in town, the number of folks moving here, the housing market and how it's fluctuated and changed over the years, and it's been just as hot as it's ever been, if maybe has ever been in the last 16 months within the town of Blowing Rock. So all that being said, when you start looking at the numbers, the town of Blowing Rock is made up by 68 full-time employees. We'll say 30 is part-time. That's pool staff, park and rec staff, et cetera. We operate a $10.5 million general fund and about a $2.25 million water and sewer fund. We provide essential protection services with fire and police, essential services that are planning and inspections, water, sewer, and public works, which is streets and sanitation. We have some extras there I put that you don't have to provide, but we do here: economic development, park and recreation, landscaping, et cetera. Those make up the 6 departments that make up the town of Blowing Rock and the 68 full-time employees within those 6 departments. I put down here 10 years ago. So if you look 10 years ago at the town of Blowing Rock's budget, it was at $4.9 million in the general fund and a little bit more than $1 million, $1.4 million in the water and sewer fund. So you'll see that in the last 10 years, the town's budget's more than doubled. And I think that's just telling to everyone that's been here for the last 10 years how much growth we've had. 2020, 2021, we collected almost $5 million in property taxes. So, if you just love numbers like I do, our entire budget, sales tax, TDA, you name it, 10 years ago, we have just about grown to that point now before revalve at $4.75 million. I put since COVID, unbelievable growth the last 16 months. These are real numbers. Sales tax has been up over 15% during that time. The TDA has been up over 50%. Executive Director Brown will be here to discuss the details. Our ABC store has been up over 40%, and that's probably 50% because the fall's been unbelievable, and et cetera. One thing, if you look at the revenues for the town, you'll see a diversified portfolio. These are gross numbers. These are taken directly from the audit, so there are some net numbers there you have to take into consideration. But if you look at our gross numbers, this is a pretty good-looking pie chart. It shows how diversified the revenue sources are within the town. It shows property taxes obviously being the biggest piece, and it goes into sales tax and TDA and et cetera. What do you get for that, or is always the key, and property taxes always seem to be number one. It's a little hard to see there. I apologize. Blowing Rock is here in the red. That's probably not a good color to use for numbers now I'm thinking about it, Tim. Probably need to go with green, but Blowing Rock is at 43 cents. That's after the tax increase that we had this past year. Watauga County did not have a tax increase. They're still at 40%. This slide is important because a couple things, in my opinion. The dates you see out here, these are the dates of the latest revals for Avery and Ashe County. Watauga County is in the process of the revaluation process right now, which means that this 43% rate will change going into next year. What that is, we don't know. It's going to be dependent a lot on what our total values are. I think we all can believe it's been 8 years almost. We'll be 8 years by the time we get to January since our last revalve, and I think our property tax rates, or property tax values have increased quite a bit in the last 8 years. So I fully expect that this 43 cent will be less than 43 next year. I just don't know what that number is yet. But this is a good slide. I think a lot of times folks up here look at places to move, and they look at tax rates and et cetera. When you take the county and the towns into account, Beech Mountain is the highest at $1.21. Blowing Rock is the cheapest at 83 cents. So a testament, obviously, to the property values and the values of the properties that we have here within the town, and the fact that we can continue to keep our property tax rate low. But those diversified revenues is another big key to that. The TDA revenue and the sales tax and the ABC and the other pieces that we have within that pie chart we had a few moments ago are huge, huge indicators of why we're able to keep our tax rate as low as what it is. So what do you get for your money? We'll start with the protection services, Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue, and our Blowing Rock Police Department. Our Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue responded to 823 calls this past year and 388 EMS calls. That's out of 3 stations. I will tell you that over 80% of the calls that we handle are out of Station 1, which is located on 321. So when you're looking at these numbers, just do the math, and about 80% of those calls are coming out of Station 1 here on 321. Station 2 and Station 3 are outside of the town limits, but within the district. National standard for response is 9 minutes or less. Ours is a little bit less than 8 minutes, and that's district-wide. It's much less than that when you get into the town. It's about 6.5. Our Blowing Rock Police Department was dispatched to 7,508 calls last year. That's a lot of calls with a staff of 13. Conducted 2,300 traffic stops. They did 21,000 property checks. I know a lot of you may be seasonal, or you know someone that's seasonal. We do a tremendous amount of property checks in the wintertime, so over almost 21,000. Mayor mentioned earlier about dispatch. We did start dispatch back in-house here from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week on July the 1st, 2020. That has had a huge result for the town. There's not a week that goes by that I don't receive some type of compliment at the fact that our police station is manned by someone 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. You can walk in and the door's always open and someone's going to be there. Even after hours, there's a phone and a push button there to call 911 always if you have an emergency. But having that presence, especially where it's located within the town, I think is a tremendous asset and really a premium service that we did not have for a number of years. And again, the mayor did take a little thunder. Our school resource officer at Blowing Rock is a tremendous position that the council approved now a number of years ago. We are still the only school within Watauga County that is funded by municipality monies. The others are funded through the county, and they are shared services. So we're the only elementary school in the county that has a full-time school resource officer. The others share resource officers. And so they may have a resource officer every Tuesday or maybe even 2 days a week. We have one 5 days a week, and that position does a tremendous job for the children down at the school. I have a first grader there, and one of the first things that he was able to do this year is earn enough buttons, and buttons are given for good behavior and good merits. After 50 buttons, you get to have lunch with the school resource officer, Brad Swift. And so that was a huge talk around my house as we were leading up to that 50 button. being the true accountant's son, former accountant's son, he waited until he had enough buttons to get 1 and 2. So I'll just throw that in there too. So he had both prizes in hand before he spent the first one. Also, essential services, going into our water and sewer. If you lived on Ransom Street a few weeks ago, you know how important water and sewer services are and how quickly we responded to the main break that was there. We have over 2,200 water customers and almost 1,800 sewer customers to date. That's 22 miles of water line and over 20 miles of sewer line that's buried beneath the ground. Streets, we have over 32 miles of streets that we take care of. That's everything from snow removal, leaf pickup, et cetera, but over 32 miles of streets. 660 work orders, just street-related only. So those are just street-related issues within the town in the past 12 months, 660 of those. We had 27 water and sewer line repairs, none bigger than the Ransom Street blowout that we had a few weeks ago. We still offer residential pickup 2 days a week. We did transition our commercial pickup over to Republic this past year for a variety of reasons. One, we had an aging trash truck that needed to be replaced, and those are several $100,000. We also do have a difficult time of keeping that particular truck staffed. That's not a glorious job by any means. And so we were able to eliminate a position, eliminate the truck, and turn that service over to Republic for our 36 or 37 commercial clients that we had within the town, and focus on our residential and Main Street pickup. A lot of growth here within planning and zoning. So you'll see here some important numbers, some record growth numbers. I'll jump down to the bottom. We are approaching today, actually we're right at $40 million in permits issued today. We were at 35 million last year, which was a record. We had never been over 30 million other than when the Foley Center was built. And so just some perspective there from a building permit standpoint. Almost 400 year-to-date permits have been issued. 17 new homes so far this year versus 7 last year. 17 new homes represent a little bit more than $20 million in value. So that tells you the obviously average price of those homes that are being built. We've already had over 332 home renovation permits pulled in the last 12 months. Project since we just last met, the Bass Lake sidewalk, I was told when I got here, had been talked about for 50 years. I don't know what I think 7 years, give or take, is the exact amount. That project is truly near completion, so we have been told that we should have a punch list in our hand by next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. Maybe obviously a week or so after that we finish up with the punch list, but they are that close to being finished. That's almost 3,000 linear feet of sidewalk that's going to connect the town of Blowing Rock to the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Cone Estate, and the Bass Lake trails that are out there. A tremendous project, really unique, one-of-a-kind project that is funded through an E-flap grant, which is connecting the federal lands to the state property through DOT. And that requires a 20% match, which we're able to utilize bond funding for. And so that was put into place in 2014. Really, when this discussion started was in 2014, and those monies were set aside to match that. We had some issues. I put on here 7 years in the making with a COVID delay. So if you all recall, I think my first year here, I mentioned the fact that we were close to putting this out to bid, and we did, and then COVID hit, and we were pushing pause on that project like we did just about everything there for about 6 or 8 months. But this project is just now days away from being complete, and that is a tremendous, tremendous thing. A few pictures here from yesterday morning of the project. You can imagine without the cones, obviously, how great this is going to look. Project does include, like I said, almost 3,000 linear feet of sidewalk. Does have a pretty good amount of stabilization product within it with 2 retaining walls. You'll see the fence here behind me, a lot of drainage work, and then the most convoluted thing, if you've ever been around any project in Blowing Rock and you start digging in the ground, you will hit a water line or sewer line no matter where you are in town. Doesn't matter if it's at your house or doesn't matter if it's on Main Street, you're going to hit a water and sewer line from somewhere 100 years ago. That was a big piece of this project as well, is moving some of those water and sewer lines around. Paving, Mayor did mention our paving. So this was our 3rd round of paving in the last 6 years, 7 years, should say, that was paid for out of the 2014 bond monies. This particular round was $2.5 million, included 72 different pieces of street. It was on time and on budget, which is key. Also included a very large and unique and one-of-a-kind drainage projects on Chestnut and Morris. If anyone lives in that area, or if you've been around town long enough, you know previously when you would have a hard rain, that would be an area that would flood almost every time and be one of the kind of the hot spots from a flooding standpoint. So a piece of this project included the increased drainage project that was on Chestnut and Morris. 14 curb inlets with grades and junction boxes included. This is just a picture here on Chestnut of some of the different examples there. That may look simple, and you can see up here to the north of it another one. Those 14 junction boxes have made a tremendous difference in that whole area. That includes the school, that includes everyone on Morris Street. It is kind of a bowl, so to speak, but this project has done a tremendous job in helping us eliminate some of those stormwater issues we've had there. That's a good looking picture. So 2,200 of you are water customers, and I'm guessing that's about everyone in here. This picture looks worse than it is, so don't let me say that it's not. This picture shows our pump system in the basement of the water plant about a year and a half ago. This has happened and had happened over a course of about 10 years. So in the basement of our water plant is where our chemicals have been housed, and these are very corrosive chemicals that are down there. And so it just takes a little bit of a leak. And you can see from the pictures here, I'll jump forward and show you the one on the left of what the tanks look like. The chemicals in the tank are perfectly fine. So I say that ahead of time, just disclaimer. The water's fine, chemicals are fine. But an important project that didn't get a lot of notoriety was the town council approved last fall, I should say, to move forward with replacing these chemical tanks and pumps in the basement. That was about a $225,000 project. So not a huge project dollar-wise, but the result of it is from the left side to the right side, you'll see our basement has been transformed into a much better looking and much more functional and efficient chemical system that we have down there that allows us to not only get chemicals in and out quicker, but allows us to help treat the water a little bit faster and more effective than we were before. A lot of words on this. I'll briefly go through what this means. So our Park and Recreation Advisory Committee was put together on December the 15th, 2020. David Harwood has led that group now for almost a year. And the group is listed up there. It includes Melissa Pickett and Pete Girini, but that's got to change because we can't have 3 council members on the board, on the committee. Jennifer Brown, Park and Rec Director, and myself has been a part of that. McGill and Associates and the High Country Council of Government have been instrumental through this whole process with us. Our first task was to look through and to develop a scope of the project that we thought we were going to be able to maybe move forward with and ultimately get town council approval and moving forward with an application for a Park and Recreation Trust Fund grant. You'll see some dates and or timelines up here. We had a ton of meetings, an absolute ton. I can't remember how many we had in the first 2 or 3 months. I would say 6 or 8 at least, and then public meetings and inputs and hearings. We had a number of things held at town hall, surveys that went out. All that led to us applying for a Park and Rec grant in May of 2021. Our ask there was for $500,000 to be offset with another $500,000 in bond money that we had from 2014. The project, and I'll put up a slide here, what we were hoping to get funding for was to be able to accomplish a number of things. Number one, I would say, is our need for new bathroom facilities. This is our existing facilities here in Memorial Park. This would be where our new facilities would go. This project would be kind of like a rest stop mirror image. So we would have men's and women's on one side and men's and women's on the other side. It would allow our folks that clean the bathrooms to shut one side down and open the other side back up. It included ADA access here. This is Wallingford and where we are right now at the American Legion. Currently, there is no true access. You have some older concrete steps here and a retaining wall that's timber that's falling. What the project will allow is for ADA access ability from Wallingford up behind Park and Rec, a ramp that goes up and connects where the tennis courts are, and then a new sidewalk that goes around the new bathrooms that will provide full ADA accessibility from anyone that's coming up from the American Legion area. Also includes a new 5-foot sidewalk here to the south, along with the relocation of the volleyball courts. Where the volleyball courts are now, we were proposing to do a picnic shelter. Our new playground has been unbelievably busy. If you've been by town, you know at any given time, rain, snow, regardless of the time of day, there's 50 kids out there and at least that many parents looking for a place to sit down and have a lunch. And so that picnic shelter was proposed to have in this area, along with some new cornhole and shuffleboard courts within here. All that being said, was the project and grant was submitted in May, and we waited until September. Our project was the #1 scoring project at the state level, but unfortunately we didn't receive funding for this. The board decided to move the funding to other locations, and so right now we're hoping that with the new budget that was just passed today, there is some additional Partif money in there, and we're in hopes that the Partif group gets back together and perhaps decides to put us on their list of funding. That being said, we have decided, and council did move forward with putting together a plan to move forward with the renovation and addition to the bathroom. I put here at the bottom, in order to kind of help prove our point, I don't think we needed to help prove it, we put clickers on the bathroom doors in Memorial Park for a month to get a feel for how many folks used our bathrooms during a given month. And we did this during the month of October, so obviously it's a busier month, and the clickers are still there. They're not invasion of privacy. They're literally just little clickers to give on that. 34,000 people use those bathroom facilities in a month. So I think there's a need for bathrooms. Council has recognized that, and that's why they passed and moved forward with us, at least moving forward with the bathroom project. We're in hopes the whole project moves forward. If not, I think the plan may be to come back and reapply again. Sunset Drive entrances, I'll go a little fast because I'm getting the warning here. I've got a lot left to go, so I'm going to have to talk fast. Sunset Drive entrances, I'll go right to the pictures. If you've been by 321 in Sunset, you see a beautiful landscaping project that took place this summer and fall. That's 100% paid for, utilizing TDA funds. That project consisted of almost 400 tons of rock, 340 tons of dirt, and over 400 plants and trees and flowers that are out there. That was talked about again during 2014 when the bond monies were being issued. Sunset as a whole was looked at. The infrastructure piece, the water, sewer, stormwater, et cetera piece was done and completed last year, but the beautification, the entrance piece was not. And so this was kind of the last piece of Sunset Drive that was put together and completed this fall. A few other things real quick on here. Our laydown building is over in the Mayview area. That's just recently completed, and we'll start piling our stuff in there. That's important to house our piping and fittings and et cetera. So when we have the water line breaks at 2 in the morning, the guys can go here, flip a light on, and get access to exactly what they need now versus having it laying out into the yard or et cetera. So that will help organization-wise. We talked about our water and sewer plant earlier. This is the entrance to the wastewater plant. This was just completed in the last week or two, and paving took place today. These culverts run under that road to have access to the wastewater plant. That's the only road to access the wastewater plant in the reservoir. So that's another project the council approved this year. And then what you see here on the bottom right is a project that's being completed right now on Valley View Road. We had a slope failure there, drainage work, and these are gabion baskets being put in. So these aren't overly huge projects, but again, significant projects for the town to be able to accomplish this year. What's on deck? Most importantly, I would say, and we've talked about this, when we get together for our retreat in January, we look together as a group, council and staff at kind of our prioritization list. And Sunset Drive and the crosswalks came up this past year and was number 1 on the list. We were able to move forward with approving that plan this summer. And so we do have a signed contract, and Green's Construction out of Boone is set to start construction in February of 2022, so here in about 2 months after Winterfest is finished. That project will only take about 2 months, but that project consists of formalized formalized crosswalks, an additional crosswalk at Sunset, and also pictures here, Sunset or Chestnut and Main Street that doesn't exist right now. So if you kind of know where we are, here's Jenny Stevens Lane, Brom is here, this is Chestnut Street. This crosswalk doesn't exist right now. This is a piece of the project that will be completed during the months of February, March, and April. So we'll add a crosswalk here. This is 221 in Main Street. This is Speckled Trout's on this side, and the Mellow Mushroom is on this side. This intersection is adding a crosswalk that exists now, but this is putting together formalized signal crosswalks. So this is going to be a signalized crosswalk, push button, walk, don't walk, that doesn't exist right now, which will obviously enhance the safety of this intersection. And then our largest intersection in town is our Main Street and Sunset intersection. This project will add another crosswalk here to the north side. We have this one now on the south side. This will be another signalized crosswalk area on both sides. We are also taking down the stoplights here. The stoplights are coming down and going on pedestals. And so the overhead wiring in that one intersection will come down from a signal standpoint. It allows us to remove one pole in the park and allows us to obviously beautify that intersection. So you can kind of see here, this looks like grass. This area that's green right now will be plantings of some sorts. We're working with the landscape department right now to kind of get a feel for what may go there. But this is obviously our busiest and probably our most convoluted intersection. So if you've ever driven through here, there's no doubt you've seen people looking up at 2 different directions and trying to figure out when to walk. This will be signalized, signals will come down, traffic signals will come down, and you'll have a combination of 4 walk, don't walk buttons, 2 on each side of each one of these intersections. So this project, again, is a collaboration and funded through town bond money that was left over after we came in under budget on Sunset. The TDA and our ABC board so is paying for this. So these are extra monies, town monies, along with our TDA and our ABC is funding this project, and it's about $500,000 total. I'll go kind of quickly through these. These aren't exciting things, but again, if you have water and sewer, they're important things. The town is a gravity-fed system that requires 24 PRVs. So if you ever hear of the PRV term, pressure-reducing valve, our top up here is an example of what we have. This is what we would like to have. The reason these are important is because they control, obviously, the pressure that is going downhill, and depending on where you are in town, that pressure can be fairly high at times. And so these PRVs were put in the 60s and 70s, and they're starting to fail and starting to stick. And so back at the retreat in January, we decided to move forward with replacing these PRVs, but we did so after putting together a hydraulic study and listing them 1 through 24 and importance and need of replacement. And just this past month or 2 months ago, we approved the contract to move forward with replacing the number 1 one, which is at Green Street, and then we're going to plan on systematically moving forward replacing those. Again, that's another not necessarily appealing project, but it's needed. Main Street Water and Sewer, the only thing I'll say to this other than thank you to the state and Ray obviously for putting this together, because this is a huge deal for Blowing Rock to be able to receive an allocation, close to $5 million. We were planning on moving forward with obtaining a USDA loan for 40 years, and that $4.8 million would be more like $6+ million, obviously, even at the rates in which they are right now. So that allocation is more like $6 million because it doesn't force us now to go to the USDA to borrow the money. It allows us to move forward with the project and some other things that we have in the water and sewer plan as well. So tremendous thing here for us to be in line for achieving this. Portions of Main Street Water was built in 1910. Some of those pieces are still in the ground operational right now. The picture you see here is a true picture of a cast iron pipe that you can see is riddled with holes. And this gentleman here was there fixing obviously a water leak. And if you tapped it with the shovel, it would crack and break. So essentially the ground is holding these pipes together. So this project will be tremendous at for upfitting all of downtown and for the residential neighborhoods that feed off of downtown. So we have 2 water lines on Main Street that feed the majority of the downtown neighborhoods, Mayview being one of those as well. So this project's going to help quite a bit. We do have some upgrades coming to the water and wastewater plant. I won't go through this unless you like seeing words and hearing words like flocculators. I didn't know what that was when I got here. Mayor did. He informed me of what it was. But these are important things. Let's just leave it at that. Important things that need to be done to keep our water plant and our wastewater plant up to date and upgraded. Both those plants were built in the late 70s, and so some of these things are original and are in need of being replaced. Parking. I won't steal Tracy's thunder before he gets up here, but TDA did an awesome job in hiring Roger Brooks International to come in this summer and put together a plan. And our retreat, there is no doubt we will have nothing but parking, I'm sure, for a good portion of a day, maybe a whole day. I'm not sure how long we may spend on it. Paid parking, residential parking, Main Street parking, parking decks, purchasing land for parking. So I think parking is going to be a key word of our vocabulary. So I know I got a little fast there at the end. Blame it on Susie. She kept throwing up the fingers to let me know that it was time to go. But with that, I will turn it over to Tracy Brown. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for everybody being here and folks watching at home that could not be here. I'm going to run through some stuff real quick. We did run a little bit over. Charles is always running over. He wanted me to talk to you real quick about year-end numbers, where we stand in occupancy tax revenue, the impact of COVID over the last year, and the initiatives that the TDA is working on right now. So we'll do that. I wanted to share this image first to let you, or remind some folks that we've been in the tourism business a long time, about 150 years or so. And part of that building is still there, believe it or not. What happened in 2020, what we saw was $1,500,000 in occupancy tax revenue. What that represents to us is $25 million in lodging sales, just in Blowing Rock, and $75 million plus in visitor spending, and that's a conservative number because I don't want anybody to say, you blew those numbers out of proportion. I did not. That is a conservative number. If you look at what happened over the last year, that spike right there, that's not sustainable, okay? We're not the only ones that happened to. Anybody along the Blue Ridge saw this. Call Beach Mountain and ask them what happened. Berserk. It went nuts. People were escaping up here to get out of the urban areas, and we weren't expecting it. I mean, quite frankly, we had no idea this was going to happen. We budgeted down 40% thinking that, and that's what the state suggested. At the end of the year, the state was down about 30% overall in tourism. We were up 50%. And in some areas, more than that. In Blowing Rock, most of our restaurants had the best year ever. Our lodging had the best year ever on record. What this means to us in Watauga County in 2020, this comes from U.S. Travel Association and Visit North Carolina. Watauga County alone had $320 million worth of visitor spending from tourism, $66 million in payroll in this county. We have 2,738 employees in Watauga County that are employed in tourism. It's a huge industry for us, obviously. What that means is $463 per person in tax savings every year. Now, I know somebody in here is going to say, I'll gladly pay the difference. Will you do that for 8,000 people? You okay? That's what we got to look at. We got to think of it like that. If you're looking at the North Carolina High Country, we're all members here of the North Carolina High Country Host. I was a good friend, am a good friend of the guy that actually coined the phrase High Country. And it's a guy named Bill Hensley out of Charlotte. He worked with Tweetsea Railroad, Beach Mountain, Carolina Caribbean Corporation way back in the 60s. He coined that phrase in the early 70s. Actually late 70s because we started in the early 80s with High Country Host. Regardless, those 5 counties right there, you can see $35.7 million in Allegheny County over in Sparta, Ashe County, West Jefferson, $82.1 million. Watauga County, we're at $320 million. You take that whole region, and what threads that together is the Blue Ridge Parkway. That's what makes the High Country, okay? $632 million in visitor spending. It's a huge, clearly huge industry for us. And we all work together, by the way. I'm not competing. We are not competing. It's not I, me, my. It's us, we, our. We are working with West Jefferson. We are working with Beach Mountain. They are our neighbors. Our best friend is right up the road. It's called Boone. All right? They send them to us. We send them to them. We share every day. We don't compete. The Blue Ridge Parkway, this past year, record numbers. More than 14 million people visited the Blue Ridge Parkway. $1.1 billion spent in these gateway communities like us. We're a gateway community to the Parkway. That Parkway, the 469 miles, supports 15,000 jobs. More visitors visited the Blue Ridge Parkway than Yosemite, Yellowstone, and the Grand Canyon combined. Don't believe me? Fine, Google it. You got high-speed internet in this town now, so Google that. I can't make it up. At the state level, let me show you this right here real quick, and I know some of these numbers may be a little bit hard to see. That $10 billion, North Carolina lost $10 billion in visitor spending last year. The majority of that money is being spent in places like Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro, big convention centers. All that business went away. Then what we call it in the tourism business, we say you got the hard Rocky Mountains on the west, you got the soft sandy beaches on the east, and you got that sweet, creamy middle where all the money is. That's Raleigh, Durham, that's Greensboro, Winston, that's Charlotte. That's where all that money went away in those big urban areas. In tourism employment, we were down 26%, or 63,000 employees walked away, got laid off, put out of a job. A lot of them, just like here, said, I am not going to bitch with another person about a mask. I'm done. For $9 an hour, forget it, I'm out. And that's what happened. So if you look right here, we're talking about over what the tax savings, $170 on average per person or per resident in North Carolina. In Watauga County, it's $463. It's probably a little more in Blowing Rock when you really think about it. Regardless, it's worth a lot of money to our area. I've heard some talk here lately about our expenditures and our money and what we do with it and how we ought to flip the budget and this, that, and the other. Let's talk just a little bit about that. This 2/3, 1/3 thing. First off, all this right here is considered advertising. But if you'll look right there, $213,000, that's not advertising. That's paying salary, that's paying rent, that's paying travel expenses. We have to go to school all the time. Amanda, by the way, just finished her TMP certification, which is Travel Marketing Professional Certification, as well as her Festival and Event Planner certification through Southeast Tourism. We have to pay for that. We got to pay for her to travel. We got to pay for her to fly somewhere. We got to pay for the hotel, whatever, the schooling, that kind of thing. Direct tourism promotion, $423,000. Now, part of that, things like media relations, public relations, advertising, the website, all of that comes out. It's not just direct advertising, not just ads. Also paying for Roger Brooks' Sustainable Tourism Management Plan. That infrastructure, that's what we call it here. That 1/3 part is doing things like working on Middle Fork Greenway, Memorial Park improvements, Highway 321 lighting, stuff like that. Parks and Recreation, let's talk about that from that 1/3 side, what the tourists have paid for that you have not. As a resident, we're not paying what I'm showing you here. Our visitors are. And when you see one, I would hope that you'd say thank you, you know. Since 2005, we spent $400,000 with Parks and Recreation on the events. Now, is that not a hallmark moment right there? That's our buddy Lonnie Webster gave me that photo. And how sweet is that? By the way, thanks to Parks and Rec and the folks with the town for moving that parade to 10 o'clock. That made all the difference in the world. Everybody's happy about that. I know there was a lot of controversy there when we first started, but that's worked out beautifully. And if that doesn't wind up in Southern Living or something, well, I'll see that it does. We'll work on that. Lighting of the town next weekend, right? Not this weekend, but next weekend. So I hope you all will be able to make that, and we're going to have a lot of fun. There should be a lot of new things happening there. The new playground, we pledged to put up $300,000 toward that, half of the expense the visitors are paying for. And is that not a jewel? Absolutely gorgeous. Landscaping, since '05, we spent over $300,000 in keeping the flowers watered. Beautiful work. Spent $262,000 on the Middle Fork Greenway. $76,000 in refurbishing the Cone Manor. I hope you've had a chance to get out there and see that. It is absolutely gorgeous. They've done a beautiful job, and they're finished up now. I think there's still some fencing there. We spent $1.5 million on the Brown property and the parking deck that goes with that. That's an asset that we enjoy far more than any visitor, any number of visitors. Our locals enjoy that more than the visitors do. I know that just by the zip code studies that we do. We're spending right now $25,000 a year for the lighting out on 321, on the bypass. That's money that you don't have to spend, an amenity that we as residents wanted. We wanted those lights out there. The tourists weren't looking for that. They were looking for a bathroom and a place to park. But now we have this beautifully lit bypass with the sidewalks, curb and guttering and all that. And thanks for the photo, Shay. Appreciate you going out there and grabbing that. Messaging and website stuff we've had to change over the last 18 months. At first, when the COVID deal hit us, we shut down. We asked people to stop coming here. Literally told them, don't come. Visit us online. We'd love to see you later. When it did start opening back up, we started talking about the social distancing and trying to encourage that everybody do the right thing and you know, wear the masks, practice social distancing and all that. We also noticed the number of people that were coming up here to get out of the urban areas that had never been into a national park before. They didn't know how to use it. So we had to tell them and show them, hey, help us protect our natural spaces. And we're going to start leaning in that way and trying to push that message more. As we look ahead, this is new photography that we did this past year and did tons of it, by the way, because we had the time. We're going to be obviously working on the Sustainable Tourism Management Plan with Roger Brooks. He'll be back here December 8th. We'll be meeting at Town Hall, as far as I know. That's what we've got scheduled right now. He's going to be meeting with the TDA board that day at our retreat, and then that evening around 5:30 or so, we'll be meeting at Town Hall to start talking or have the public presentation. And then we've got to sit down with the town, the chamber, and everybody else involved to start to get some of these things started. I'm going to leave you with that. If, by the way, I know that was fast, but they had us, it's hard to talk about a $75 million business in 15 minutes. You can always email me or Amanda, either one. Give us a call at the office, and we have a year-end report we're happy to send you. If you want it, just give us a shout. We'll be glad to share that with you. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta get the big man up here, Chuck Mantooth. He's the president and CEO of Appalachian Regional Healthcare.
I'll try to bring us home here and not keep you guys too late. I was sitting back there thinking there's a great saying called "the devil rides an idle horse," and there's no idle horses being ridden here. So, hearing all those great things about Blowing Rock, it kind of makes me want to move over here. So, congratulations! You guys have great leadership here with Shane, Tracy, Charlie, Charles, and hopefully I didn't miss anyone. But it's just some really good things going on. I'm going to add to that. You heard a lot about growth and new things, and that's the same thing going on at Appalachian Regional Healthcare System. So I want to just try to work through a few slides pretty quick about who we are, just to put it in perspective. We now have 3 hospitals, and that's part of the conversation tonight, is that on Monday we just opened what's called Appalachian Regional Healthcare Behavioral Health Hospital, and that's 37 beds. We were offering that service before as an extension of Cannon Memorial Hospital. We pulled that out, added 27 beds, and it's now a separate hospital in Linville that's meeting a tremendous need here. So the other 2 is Charles A. Cannon Memorial Hospital, which is a critical access hospital on the same campus as Appalachian Region, ARBH. And then also Watauga Medical Center, 8 miles down the road here. Together we have about 125 acute, what that means, just inpatient beds, and the new 37 behavioral health beds. We have a lot of doctor's offices, and we'll go through all of our numbers there. Most of you know about our outpatient services, but a little snapshot of who we are. We're almost 1,500 employees. As a matter of fact, we were about 1,500 employees about 6 months ago. We are experiencing the same workforce shortage and crisis that most of you are if you're in a business or the town of Boone. So we're all in the same boat together. I think as of today, we have 50 vacancies of nurses at the hospital. So it's not a good situation we're in, but we're trying to dig our way out of that. Generate revenue of about $220 million. And I just want to highlight the red. Shane, I guess the key is to put red on the white background so it sticks out a little bit there. But if you add those 2 numbers together as our 501c not-for-profit status, what we give back is about $30 million in either charity or uncompensated care. So there's why we do not pay taxes and we qualify as a not-for-profit. I won't go through all the other interesting stats here, and I'll just jump right to it. Before I cover this, I want to call a little bit of an audible on myself, even with this presentation. I want to start with what's going on here in Blowing Rock. Throughout this presentation, this is a result of about 3 to 4 years of planning. As part of that planning, there's another saying that I like to say, I heard long ago, I think my mom actually told me this, is that you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. We went through that. As we were planning, there were a lot of needs that we felt like that we wanted to meet, and we couldn't do it all. Part of that was obviously a little pain there to sell the Foley Center, but I have some good news. I had Rob Hudspeth get an update today from Liberty Healthcare. We sold that remaining 58 acres to them back in September. They also purchased 11 acres from the Green Sisters, which gives them a really good chunk of land to go ahead and start developing a retirement community around the Foley Center. That was our vision all along. I do have an update. I can say that, is Kevin Rothrock here? I think some information is going to come from him, but as long as the permitting and things come to fruition, they should start moving some dirt within about 6 months up there. So pretty excited about that. So now working our way towards Boone. If you've been by the hospital on 321, this building looks a lot more like this than it did just a few weeks ago. Really proud of our contractor and the work that's going on there. Just a quick nerdy kind of stat. The reason the envelope went up so quick is because that 636 panels that weigh about 30,000 pounds each that they placed in about 2 weeks and completely closed that in. The windows are being put in this week and next week, and by Thanksgiving, we'll have that dried in, and those folks that are working on the inside will have some heat to work with throughout the winter. So there's a little bit about what it's going to look like. Let me just quickly cover, I'm not going to do the laser, I'll mess it up here, but on the left, the Harden Vascular Center, we opened that about a year ago. That was phase one. We had to make room for what is to come with the bed tower. With that, we created clinic space. We will be pulling in diagnostic testing behind that. Our hope is to move cardiac and pulmonary rehab into that facility also once we move into the other building. And we are even now in discussions of developing an electrophysiology program, an EP program. So we cover almost everything to do with the heart, the beating, the pumping, and now the electrical is the last piece of the puzzle for us. So it'll really be a nice service there. Some relocation of departments in the hospital with our intensive care unit, that's already open. Our central energy plant. That one's one that we spent a lot of money on and no one knows any difference. As long as the water's flowing, the heat's on, and the power's on, no one recognizes those things, but we spent $25 million to make sure that they do stay on. Third, a lot better parking, more efficient use of our space there. And then lastly, the big piece that'll come online about a year from now is the bed tower. The bed tower, starting from the 4th floor down, 4th and 3rd floor are, I'll flip through this real quick. I may go back. New patient rooms. There's 48 new patient rooms on the 4th and 3rd floor. They're twice the size of what they are now, and they have twice the view. They're just remarkable. It's going to be a beautiful facility. On the 3rd floor are new operating rooms. Those are also twice the size. You'll never see the inside of one. The surgeon will, but you won't. You may be there at some point, but hopefully you'll be asleep and we'll move you out of that. But they're twice the size, trust me. It'll be great for the surgeons. Also, that's going to play an important part for us to be able to attract new surgeons here to this community. We already have a great place for them to live. We want to give them a great place to work. On the 1st floor, you walk in, it'll be a brand new 2-story lobby, so an inviting space to walk into through this new entrance. 1st floor is all diagnostics. We're moving all of our women's health, CT scanners, MRIs, all that diagnostic equipment on the 1st floor. The reason we did that is because it's now co-located next to the emergency department on this side. Diagnostics will be here, and when we can move patients vertically from 4th, 3rd, and 2nd floor down and really kind of stay behind the scenes rather than move folks through public areas, which is the way we do it now. So it's a tremendous improvement. That's it on the project. We are officially going to be complete in December of 2022, next year, although we're getting hints that it may be earlier than that, which is really, really good. That'll save us quite a bit of money, and we can go ahead and start using that spaces, which is just an improvement all the way around. I want to share this with you because this is something that goes unnoticed, but it's something that's going to be with us for years to come. You're looking at the faces of the doctors that may be taking care of you at some point, maybe taking care of me at some point in my life. These are the first 2 classes of our new family medicine residency program. And we started that last year, added 4. We added 4 this year. It's a 666 program, which means that we have the potential to add 6 at some point. But when that program's mature, we'll have 18 residents here functioning throughout the high country. Now, what that gives us is a sustainable model for primary care. The stats show that about half of them will end up working here. And most rural areas struggle with getting doctors to come to live in their communities. So this gives us a direct pipeline. They're all smiling. After year 3, they may not be smiling so much, but we're hoping they will. But that's a great thing about what's going on at ARHS. I want to just point out that we are in the middle of a capital campaign. That project, by the way, that I mentioned is $126 million. We paid for that through issuing bonds through the state, tax-free bonds. But we wanted to make sure, we knew that as we progressed throughout the project, there would be things that we wanted to do that weren't included. It's just the nature of how fast healthcare is changing. So we have a capital campaign to raise $12 million for those enhancements. When I talked about that electrophysiology program before, that's already possible because of the $1.5 million that we received from Ken Lewis, that he named that center for his wife, Donna, which is a great thing to do. So I will say we're still in the quiet phase, but quietly we've already raised about $9 million of that. So it's just been tremendous so far. I mentioned ARBH. This is just a couple weeks ago. We were fortunate enough to get a great day to take some pictures. And we took that picture there, and that's most of the staff that's working inside the hospital. But that's going to be a tremendous community asset for years to come, that new 37-bed facility. I am going to stop early because I was trying to make up some time, but I've got to see if there are any questions. Shane's giving me the thumbs up there. And Susie, I want to make sure I do this right. I'm going to open it up, I guess, for questions for anyone that presented and even me that's standing here. Is that right? Do we have time?
That sounds great. We have a few minutes.
Okay, sure. Tracy, don't leave yet. I'm sure there's some questions for you. Mr. Tarleton, yes, good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
When might we expect Liberty to make some sort of formal announcement?
I don't know the answer to that, but putting the pieces together, they've hired an architect, they've hired a person that can say, what can we put on this land? I guess an engineer to some degree. I'd hate to speculate, but I would say around the first part of the year. And I'll make sure that, I know this part of the community and the rest of the community is very interested in that. I get lots of questions about it. So as soon as that announcement is ready to go, I want to make sure we get that out. Okay.
Hey, Chuck.
Jenny?
Behavioral health care, is that located next to Cannon? Where is that hospital?
It is, and actually you're going to see a lot. I'll try not to talk too much about it, but it's unique. It's the first one in the country to up until we did it, we got special approval to do it. You couldn't co-locate hospitals. You couldn't, for some obscure reason, you couldn't do that. We got an exemption to be able to do that, and we co-located. We put a firewall up. We renovated unused medical space and put behavioral health space in it. So you walk into the left, it's behavioral health hospital. You walk into the right, it's Cannon Memorial Hospital, on the campus of a Y and a medical office building, which that's a beautiful campus over there. Joyce, good to see you. And I'm sure you have a question for someone.
I had a question for Shane. I'm sure you've thought of this, but when you were talking about the Main Street and all the lights changing and the walkways, Sunset and also further down, we had thought about the fact that all of that's going to be torn up in another year, correct?
That's correct. So the crosswalk project is definitely needed and has been needed for a number of years. It will have no impact on the water sewer project. So it's in the same area, so to speak, but the way the project will go in, the conduit, et cetera, there'll be no issues with that. So the crosswalk project, I didn't add up there, will not be fully complete. So the signals will go in, everything will look perfect. You won't have the beautiful stamped concrete to walk across because you're right, we're going to tear that up. But everything will be functional just as it normally would be. The water line and the sewer line will go essentially about 3 feet off of the yellow line on the east side and the west side. So it won't have any impact on the side parking spaces or the crosswalks or anything like that. But if you look at Main Street right now, it is a mess of old lines, and really the only area is in the middle, about 6 feet where there's nothing, or 8 feet where there's nothing right now. So from power lines being buried, water lines, sewer lines, that kind of 8 to 9 feet area is kind of our sweet spot where we'll put those, but have no impact on the crosswalks.
I was quite certain.
Yeah, no.
If there's not any other questions, just want to thank you all again for coming. And just wanted to leave you with a thought. Looking around the room, I've seen a number of folks that have volunteered their time a lot. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of names I'm not going to remember. I see our new council member, Melissa Pickett, who was a volunteer for years, I guess still will be. But Melissa, I see Joyce, and I wanted to mention William Brinker because a lot was discussed about the utilities. William and his wife Erica are part owners of Speckled Trout. William has he has volunteered like it's his job on that committee, and has really made a huge amount of headway on a topic that's been discussed for years and years. So we just can't say enough about the volunteers in this community, and just thank all of you for, in a way, volunteering tonight by coming and caring enough to be here. Volunteering is the ultimate democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community in which you want to live. So thank you, because it takes a lot of people to make this happen. Charles is very gracious. He says that the Community and Government Committee puts this event on. In reality, he and Susie and the other members of the chamber put this event on and then give credit to the Community and Government Committee. So thank you very much to all of you and to all the speakers. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.